So in our official study group, again, not the Facebook group, but our official study group, we do several open office hours a month where we just hang out in a video like this for an hour, totally open format. The members can ask me questions and I just answer, play demonstrations and examples, try and clear up any issues. And was it last weekend? At our most recent open office hours, one of the members asked me if in the next chords, How Chords Move class, if I would talk about Blue and Green, which for those of you who know me, it's like one of my favorite tunes. It's one of the tunes I used a lot when I was relearning to play because it offers us unbelievably hip harmony and it's really slow and not many measures. So when I was stuck in the mud of needing to relearn to play because my medical issues caused me to forget, it was one of my favorite tunes to work on. I had a couple of tunes that I went back and relearned first, and this Blue and Green was one of the tunes that I would use a lot to work on my triad ideas, my shell voicing ideas. So, of course, I wanted to do what our member asked because he asked, but also just because I love this tune and I love harmony and talking about how chords work. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to go over the basic form of the tune. It's only 10 measures, and when we simplify it to basic shell voicings, it's very simple. When we want to play the real harmony, it's a little bit trickier, but today we're going to work with shell voicings, and what we're going to do is we're going to start basic, and then we're going to start looking at how we can insert additional chords to create some more intriguing and unexpected movements. We're actually, I think, I was planning this out through my mind. I think we're going to start simple, and I think by the time we're done, we're going to have a completely chromatic movement. So the entire form we're going to be playing all the way through using chromatic movement in our chords. I'm pretty pumped to see how this plays out. So we're going to start really simple, then we're going to get into some traditional tension chords, and then by the end I'm going to try and squeeze in some modern variations of some ways we can make things sound a little more 21st century. So quickly, if you're not familiar with the tune, you might want to just Google the lead sheet, Blue and Green lead sheet, look it up so you can look at it. But it's relatively simple. G minor, okay, to A7 to D minor. G minor, A7, D minor. A quick D flat dominant down to C minor, F7, 2-5, C minor, F7, which resolves to B flat major. So it's a 2-5-1. That's the first half of the tune. That's how short this form is if you've never played it before. G minor, A7, D minor. A quick D flat passing chord, C minor, 2-5 to B flat. Okay. Down to A7 again, to D minor again. This time the D minor goes up to E7. The E7 resolves to its 1, A minor, and then the A minor moves to D minor, and that's the whole form. That's how short and quick this thing is. It's 10 measures long. It's not even the length of a 12-bar blues. For whatever reason, this chord progression works really beautifully, and I always see people kind of arguing and debating kind of like, is this a modal tune? Is this like, what's happening here? I kind of think of this as basically a 2-5-1 to D minor. Like the G minor is a substitution for E half diminished. Okay? Not perfectly, but more or less. You could call it like a 4-5-1. Okay? And then a 2-5-1 to B flat. Right? And then a 5-1, 5-1 to D minor, 5-1 to A minor, back to the D minor chord, and then the whole thing starts over. So it can be difficult to get unstuck from these chords, right? We open the real book, we see the chord progression, we play the chord progression. It sounds fine, but it's just very drab and doesn't go anywhere, and there's nothing unexpected or exciting about it. The chords sound great because they're great chord progression, but we want to spice this up. We want to learn to invent some new harmonic pathways. In our most recent open office hours, when our member asked if I would talk about how to create some more interesting movement in this form, we were at the time discussing how deep is the ocean, and I was pointing out that the basic chord progression there is C minor, G7, C minor, 2/5 to G minor. And I showed how we can take that and turn that into a descending chromatic a sort of descending chromatic bass line kind of a vamp, similar to, come on brain, you can do it, what's the name of the tune? My Funny Valentine, right? My Funny Valentine, right? It's just a descending bass line. These descending chromatic bass lines are very often hidden inside of basic 5/1 movement, if you know how to look for them. So check out what happens here if we apply this idea and look for this chromatic bass line in blue and green. If we start on G minor, the next chord we're headed towards is A, right? That's really far away. There's no way that we can, I mean, we could, but it would be kind of silly to try and add all those chords in here. But we know from our Chords For Life course, any of you guys who've worked through that course, we know that dominance, right, when we're talking about dominant movement, which is A7 to D minor, we know we can always tag the 2 chord before the dominant, right? So we can actually shoot for an E minor, even though the chord is supposed to be A7. We can play E minor to A7. So check this out. Now we only need to get from G down a minor third to E. G minor, E minor, okay? There's a handful of ways we can do this, but let's use the most traditional for now, and then we'll come back. Hopefully we should have some time. We'll come back and we'll do kind of like a more modern version of this. 1/5, 1/5, 1/5. Everything in jazz is tonic dominant. 1/5. G minor, F sharp diminished. Right? You could think of this as D7, which is the 5 of G minor, or you can think of it as an actual diminished chord. And then what looks like a B flat major triad, but in my mind this is G minor over its flat 7, the F note. Right, here's G minor, here's G minor with F in the lowest note. So this is G, in my mind, the way that I organize things, this is tonic, diminished or dominant, tonic, 1/5-1. And what's a half step below this F note? E minor. Did you catch that? Right? Now E minor is supposed to go to A7. Which resolves us to D minor. But what if, and we can do that, but what if we want to keep this chromatic bass line thing happening? Well, we know that the tritone sub of A7 is E flat. So we can actually play an E flat dominant chord here. So now we have G minor, F sharp diminished, G minor over F, E, it looks like E minor, it's really E half diminished, flat 7 to D minor. Okay, so now we have completely chromatic bass line movement from G all the way down to D. And in the tune, if you're looking at the real book, the next chord is D flat, the next chord is C minor. Okay, so now we have G all the way down to C with chromatic descending bass movement. Okay, in the real book, the next chord is F7, 2, 5, 1, C minor, F7, B flat. Again, what if we just use the tritone in place of the F7? So instead of F7, we play B7. So now we have C minor, B7, B flat major. Down to B flat major. That's the first half of the tune we just did with descending chromatic bass notes. Not skipping any root notes, not repeating any, it's literally just G, G flat, F, E, E flat, D, D flat, C, B, B flat. But we can keep going. In the real book, after the B flat, the next chord is A7. Okay, now here, we have to deviate from the real book. Because B flat to A is in the real book, but the next chord in the real book is D minor, which we can play. I'm not saying you have to play it this specific way that I'm showing it. I'm just showing how creatively we can move through things. We can take something like Blue and Green, which really has very little chromatic movement built into the tune, the form. I think it only happens once between the B flat and the A7. But we can, if we're creative about things and we understand how chords want to move and how they can move, we can actually get this type of movement happening into a form like this. By the time we get to A, the next chord we're trying to get to is D minor, right? I think we discussed this. I can't remember now if it was one of these lessons or one of our open office hours, but we talked about, I think it was in the open office hours, Sean, I think you were asking about applying our shell voicing inversions to tunes and to 2-5-1s, and I pointed out that we can use major 7 in place of a minor 7 chord, right? The relative major and minor. So like for an A minor 7 chord, you can play a C major 7 shell voicing, and it just will come across like a rootless voicing. So if our next chord is D minor, the relative major of D minor is F major. So we can play an F major 7 next, and it will come across like a rootless D minor 7. I know I'm going fast. I really want to get through this and then add the addition of the more kind of modern hip versions here. Because this is all still, while it is very cool, it's all still very traditional voicings. So think about this for a second. We got A7 up here on the 5th fret. And now instead of going up to D minor, we can shoot down here to F major 7, which is a sort of a substitution for the D minor. Again, now there's not that many notes that we need to fill in, not that many root notes, bass notes. So let's go back to what we did with the G minor up here. Let's do some 1-5, 1-5, 1-5, 1 diminished, 1 diminished, 1-5, back and forth, tonic dominant. A7, A flat diminished or G sharp diminished. Okay. G is the 7 of A7, so we can play A over G, and now we're just doing an inversion of A7. Okay. From G we can go to G flat diminished. Again, if you've been through Chords for Life, you know that G flat diminished can resolve down to F major 7. And Miles, there's your contrapuntal movement. Down, up, and this note stays the same on top. Check it out. Okay, the next chord in the tune is E7. There's the chromaticism. The next chord in the tune is A minor. Okay. so that's not chromatic, and that's a lot of root notes to get through to get chromatically from E to A, but where are we headed next? After the A minor chord, if you're looking at the chart, or if you just have the tune memorized, you know that the next chord, which is the last chord, we're almost at the end of the form, is D minor. Right? E7, A minor, D minor. So instead of playing A minor 7, what if we treat this second to last measure as a tension chord to resolve us to the D minor? Right? We just played E7. So instead of playing the chord that's written or doing a substitution for it, let's just ignore it, ignore the A minor, and think about the next chord, which is D minor. And what do we know about dominant chord movement from our Chords for Life course? We know that to get to D minor, we can either use A7 or the tritone sub, which is E flat. So now we have E7, E flat 7, D minor, totally chromatic. G minor, G flat diminished, G minor over F, E minor, E flat 7, D minor, D flat 7, C minor, B7, B flat, A7, A flat diminished, A7 over G, G flat diminished, F major 7. F down to E, 7, down to E flat 7, down to D minor. Completely chromatic. Okay, from beat 1, measure 1, to measure 10, that whole thing was chromatic. And we're actually not done there, because we can get from D minor, the last chord, back to G minor using chromaticism. Again, think 1-5, 1-5, 1 diminished, tonic, resolution, tension, D minor. Okay, we landed on D minor, C sharp diminished to D minor over C. Right? B half diminished, B7, A minor, A flat 7. So I think that was 2 octaves that we just chromatically descended from G down to G, down to G. All chromatic bass notes. This is not chromatic chord movement, but it's chromatic bass note movement in place of what we would expect to see. There's a lot of unexpected stuff. I don't think you should memorize this. I'm going to have to notate this out, I think, and put it in the PDF at some point, because the PDF at the moment is just the basic shell voicings, but I'll have this notated somewhere. I would not recommend that you memorize it and play every chorus after chorus after chorus like this. I'm just trying to show you kind of what's off in the distance. There's a lighthouse over there, right? I'm just trying to help you find where the land is, because we're out stuck in the middle of the sea just playing the same chords over and over and over, not sure how to move and create freedom within it. So I'm trying to point out how much freedom can be created. You might want to take some little chunks of this and memorize them, like some of the 2-5-1 movements. That's great stuff to memorize, but I would not recommend that you play chorus after chorus after chorus after chorus like this. Okay. Just like I wouldn't recommend you play the real book version chorus after chorus after chorus. The goal is to start to learn how chords are moving and how you can spontaneously move with them, understanding 5/1 movement, diminished movement, chromatic movement. That way you can just move. You can see where you want to head, your target chord, and you can just move there. I need to wrap up, but I want to point out, I was hoping to squeeze this in, and so I'm just going to do it even if it means going over by a minute or two. I just want to point out a couple of sort of more hip, modern versions of this same exact thing. So it's going to be the same chromatic descending bass line. But check this out. Sean, you were asking about our shell voicing inversions the other day in open office hours. So I want to point out how some of those could come into play here, as well as some more kind of modal and mode mixture voicings to get rid of some of these dominants, which are very hip sounding, but also very traditional and old school. So check this out. For the G, starting at the beginning, G minor, instead of playing the F sharp diminished like this, 9, 10, 8, what if we do 9, 6, 8? Puts the 9th degree of the 9th, the chord tone of the 9th in the chord, so now it's root 9, diminished 7. You're not going to hear this as a standalone voicing and immediately think, oh, that sounds like a diminished chord. It doesn't sound like a diminished chord, which is kind of why I like it. It's a little bit more ambiguous. And then if you just move this down a half step, right, this is 9, 6, 8. Move the whole thing down a half step. Now it's a shell voicing inversion for G minor, right? 7, root, 5th. This is a shell voicing inversion for G minor also, the way I was showing to you, but it's just a pure triad, so it's a little bit vanilla sounding. This is a little more intriguing. It has the major second step in there. And then we get that really cool oblique movement where these two voices stay put, and the F resolves down to E. Now for the E flat, instead of playing it as dominant, try playing it as a E flat major 7. This is one of the types of chord movement that I didn't put in Chords for Life. Remember I said there's a lot of ways we can move, but in that course we're going to study like the 4 primary sort of traditionally accepted ways. But as we've gotten more 21st century, late 20th century into the 21st century, we've started using more like modal mixture and things that are a little bit, they're related to what's in that course, but a little different. Right, we're kind of implying like a change to a new mode very temporarily, but we're getting the same movement. And it's very subtly different, but it gives it a little bit more of a modal, modern kind of a vibe. We could play D flat 7 here, which is the written chord, or we could use actual chromatic chord movement because we're going from D minor to C minor, so we can actually play D minor, D flat minor, C minor. C minor, B major 7, because why not? Talked about getting fancy, cool voicings in here because we're just talking about chord movement. But we can spice up any of these shell voicings by adding 1 or 2 notes to the top. This is our B major, B flat major 7, sharp 11, sharp 9, which is an A major triad on the top 3 strings. This is sort of an unconventional, this is just the root 6 version of this diminished voicing up here. So when you play it down here, it's 4th fret, muted 5th string, and then 3rd fret, 3rd fret. So we get root, root diminished 7, 9. Move it down chromatically, and you're implying A over G. Move it down chromatically again, and you've got G flat diminished. Files, there's some contrary motion for you. E7, E flat major 7, D minor. All that chromaticism serves a function, a purpose within this form. It's not random, right? These are not chord substitutions that I'm just making up off the top of my head. I'm thinking about 1-5, 1-5, or 1 diminished to create movement within a chord, like with G minor. I'm doing G minor to its tension, either the 5 chord or the diminished, back into G minor. So I have movement within a single chord, and then I also have movement taking me to the next chord. So it's always about targeting something, creating a sensation of home base, creating a sensation of leaving home, creating a sensation of returning to home. Or if I'm trying to get to another target zone, how can I create tension that takes me to another target? That's a major 7 sharp 5. I could sit here all day and explore this thing. I'm a big harmony nerd, in case you guys are new to hanging with me and don't know that about me yet. I would rather work on this, honestly, than fast picking technique or cool scale runs or arpeggios. To me, harmony is like, it's just the king of all this stuff. Anyways, I gotta wrap up. Let me check in and see if there's any questions in here. Tomas, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. Where to start with triad shapes and chords or scales? Like I mentioned we were just messaging with each other privately. I don't really start from either of those perspectives. I start with just a basic triad, okay? There's a bunch of free videos in this group you can watch. There's a bunch of free stuff on our website, NYC Jazz Guitar Masterclasses. But literally, this is where I recommend everyone start. I'll show you right now. It's going to seem too boring and simple to make sense, but again, if you watch a few of the videos, you'll start to see how I use this stuff. But it does seem very boring at the beginning, and it is very boring. That's the point, is to learn the basics, the fundamentals, and then to build and grow. So this is where I recommend everyone start. Just one triad. It's not... Right? I'm not talking about playing like the diatonic triads of a key. That's fine. I've worked on that stuff, and maybe at some point I'll care about it again. But that's not melodic. That just sounds like a computer program, like a piece of software that's given a set of rules. I would rather... Okay. If you can do that, then we can start adding a couple of notes to this, and we start creating emotions. So I might add tension 4, C triad with an F note. F is the 4. Notice how that F wants to pull back into the C triad. Okay. If you can see the triad shape, then you can practice adding a note like F. If you can hear the emotion of that F note and make phrases with it, then we can start to do really interesting things like put that over a D minor chord. Here's D minor 7. Notice the C note still sounds the most resolved, even though I'm playing over a D minor chord. Okay, because I'm not thinking in terms of scales or running around through a dozen different triads, I'm just thinking about this one C major triad. So it gives me the ability to create really colorful kind of post-bop melody. We can get into really cool harmony by building D minor shapes around the C triad. That's an A major triad that I'm putting over a B flat major 7 chord. Okay, but all this stuff I can only control because I'm willing to take the time to do the stupid boring thing that nobody else wants to do, which is literally this. Just playing one triad up and back a lot until it's completely internalized. That's the best starting point. Again, there's a ton of free videos in our Facebook group. There's a bunch of free stuff on YouTube. There's content, free resources, and courses on the website. That's where I recommend getting started. I gotta run. I will hopefully see you guys maybe tomorrow. We're gonna do some advanced stuff. Not that today wasn't a bit advanced, but Miles, I hope that was what you were looking for. Enjoy it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Happy practicing. Hey YouTube, it's Jordan Clemens with NYC Jazz Guitar Masterclasses and the Melodic Triad Study Group. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I have a ton of content coming out on YouTube this year. We've been doing daily jazz guitar lessons, so I'm going to be posting videos like this pretty much every day. So if you dug this and you want to follow me, subscribe and make sure that you turn on notifications so that you can watch more videos like this. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you in the comment section. Hope to see you in the next video.